Since our initial deep dive into the leaked Minecraft Dungeons sequel known as Spicewood, a lot more has come to surface. Either from new leaks or more info we've discovered. From more info on the combat system, new enchantments, new items, and even hints at something from this game coming to the vanilla game. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. We will be mentioning leaks from the more reliable sources mentioned in the previous video. So if you want to know more about the armor, story, and story possibilities, check out the previous video. Many of these leaks have come from a private channel on a private Discord, but we've recently been sent a compiled list of a variety of information relating to Spicewood. Big credit to Moam and the leakers responsible for a majority of the stuff here. Now, let's get into it. After mentioning armor and talismans, a leaker goes on to mention some of the enchantments making their way into the game. Now, obviously, these aren't all the enchantments in the final game. These leaks are months old by now, and the information here is likely from even earlier builds of the game. Some returning enchantments from the original game include Protection, Dynamo, Multi-Roll, Cooldown, Prospector, Critical Hit, along with the elemental focuses, like Soul, Lightning, and Fire Focus, which increase the damage of their respective elements. Interestingly, a brand new variant seems to be appearing in the form of Frost Focus. Ice effects have never been known to deal damage, but rather just slow down enemies in the original dungeons. It'll be interesting to see what this could mean for the game. Other new enchantments include Critical Edge, which increases damage from critical hits. Definitely seems like it'll be useful for massive damage outputs. Opportunist, which increases damage done to mobs that have negative status effects, which would really help with Void Strike, Poison, or other related effects, if they reappear in this game. Point Blank, which makes ranged attacks do more damage the closer the target is to the player, which I can see players essentially using their ranged weapon as a secondary melee with how close they would have to go, with the higher damage output. This could be really good for something like a Scatter Crossbow, which shoots multiple projectiles at once. Sidestep, which adds a chance to completely avoid taking damage when attacked by a melee attack. Could definitely be helpful with close range builds like mine. It acts kind of like the 30% chance to negate damage trait that some armors have in dungeons. Swift Sneak, making its way from vanilla, acts a bit differently, allowing the player to move faster in shadow form, as proper sneaking probably wouldn't have a use in game. Sweeping Edge, also coming from the vanilla game, increases damage done by melee splash damage, which, if the combat system doesn't slightly change in the sense of melee, would only work with certain large area attacks. Think of how certain weapons such as the Great Hammer or the Claymores deal damage around the impact point of their smash attacks. That's the type of damage that this would increase. Borealis, which on the final attack of a weapon combo, similar to Swirling or Shockwave, spreads end crystals in front of you. I'm unsure how this would work, either placing them around the area to be hit later to do more damage to other enemies, or launching them forward, quickly exploding around the area as they impact. The use of Borealis for an end-related attack is interesting. A Borealis being those northern lights really makes me think of the similar light patterns in the Echoing Void DLC. Unstoppable, which if the player moves in a single direction for a certain amount of time, allows them to become unstoppable, dealing damage to and knocking enemies aside. Which reminds me of the charge attack the tower guards do, or how the new spear works when enchanted with knockback 2. Then, the last enchantment mentioned is Blowback, giving jump attacks wind charge ability, knocking enemies back. That's right, there's a new type of attack in the game, jump attacks, which the leaks mention a direct line from Spicewood itself. Performing a jump attack not only does extra damage, but has a greater chance of staggering enemies. Keep an eye out for higher ground. Already, it sounds like they're trying to greatly improve the combat system. The mention of keeping an eye out for higher ground, meaning that players might need to make decisions based on the formation of terrain during a battle. The mention of staggering is interesting too. In dungeons, staggering a mob is a minor mechanic that mainly serves to briefly stun them and interrupt their next attack. The mention of it here specifically is odd. Maybe it'll become more fleshed out in the sequel. A lot of the enchantments and effects, as I briefly mentioned, do sound like they are made to synergize a lot more. Similar to how a lot of the original enchantments do, which is great. One saying about sequels that I always go back to is that a good sequel adds on to what made the original good. Next up are some of the artifacts mentioned in this leak. Once again, don't expect these to be the final array of items the game has to offer. Returning from the original game, we have the Corrupted Beacon, corrupted seeds, deathcap mushroom, lightning rod, picnic blanket, which is apparently just satchel of snacks, but renamed, the power shaker, the totem of regeneration, the satchel of elements, which now has poison added into the mix, now also having variants specific to each of the elements, if you want to focus on a more specific power. Some of the new ones listed include the catapult, which places a catapult that fires a deliciously devious projectile, which splits into multiple pieces on impact as a sort of explosion. The carapace ocarina, which when played deflects ranged attacks for a short amount of time. Fighter's Fife, which when played, grants all of the player's hits to be critical strikes for a short amount of time. The Grindstone, which increases the player's damage output for a short time. The Minecart, which, similar to the Smash Bros attack, places a line of rails and sends out a minecart to damage anything in its path. Oh, the horror. And the Smoke Bomb, which creates a cloud of smoke and gives the player shadow form for a short time, almost like a lesser version of the Shadow Shifter artifact. A lot of these don't have really much to expand on, but seems like a few have more placeable artifacts that help in battles. Almost like how the bee nest and various totems behave. Which is good to see more variety like this, considering a majority of artifacts in the first game don't leave the player's hand. Next, melee weapons. Daggers, dual-wielded just like in the original game. There's also a variant of this weapon that isn't dual-wielded as a separate item. Fighting sticks, which are 2 batons in each hand that are hoisted to the forearm. Gauntlets, which return from dungeons, are described interestingly with the following. Wearing these ancient wraps, you feel the talent of legendary warriors of old flow through you. It definitely adds up with their current description of gauntlets call back to an ancient style of hand-to-hand combat. Giant club, which sounds like a big wooden version of the bone cudgel, being slow with a lot of range and knockback. A giant mallet, which has a lot of knockback and an area of effect similar to the other hammers of dungeons. A halberd, noted that it's designed for chopping and thrusting, similar to the great axe blade from the first game. The mace returns, leaving enemies staggered, which seems to be a more stun-based weapon for players. The Stormcaller, which seems to be a spear variant of the Stormlander hammer, with a lightning rod as its pommel. This large spear can summon a storm in the skies. There's also a shovel, possibly being this game's equivalent to the pickaxe weapon or being alongside it. There's nothing more to it. It's just a shovel. Maybe we'll see a fun, unique variant though. Finally, the Earthbreaker, a powerful hammer. From its description, seems to cause earthquake effects to damage and affect enemies. Now, let's talk about more story. A lot of the story elements seem like they will be more forward than the last game, with the mention of the heroes talking to the villagers affected by the monstrous maw and soul sickness. There's apparently even a button dedicated to interacting with these NPCs, as seen here, appropriately binded to the T key for talk. The monstrous maw, as we mentioned in the previous video, is basically a warden monstrosity, now said to be emerging from the depths to wreak havoc on the overworld, feeding on nearby animals, attacking illagers, and is heavily related to the soul sickness that has not only affected the overworld, but your pet pig, according to these leaks. Ruben? He's back! He's back. The leaks seem to bring a connection from another game, to those familiar with the mentions of a place called the Wellspring, with the quote being, they point to the other areas of the Wellspring and request you investigate the source of the soul crisis. Should bring the Well of Fate from Minecraft Legends to mind, with the Well of Fate literally being described as a spring in the quotes within the journal. Another interesting detail is the mention of a character in the following quote. The caretaker looks towards you for help. They explain that these strange Dimension Eaters have appeared out of nowhere. The mention of multiple Dimension Eaters makes me think that there might be a new group of mobs working in tandem with the monstrous maw, if the maw isn't one of them itself. After all, what is a mouth for if not to eat? Interestingly, there's also the mention of a caretaker. There's only ever been a few mobs described as caretakers in the Minecraft universe. The hosts known as Action, Knowledge, and Foresight. This could be one of them. Yet, there's only one mentioned here. If it's not any of the caretakers we've seen, it could be something new, another host. Or, if our theories from the Fallen Heroes theory are correct, this might be the Tower Keeper, with us theorizing that they are a step in for the original caretaker from Legends. The idea of Dimension Eaters might come from the end, and possibly whatever might be behind the portal. As we mentioned in the previous video on this, the coloration of the portal makes us predict this ancient city portal is being intercepted or otherwise influenced by something like the Heart of Ender. Another piece of Ender. Or could just be another heart, which could be possible if there's more than one Eye of Ender. The mandala from the first game depicts these pieces of Ender, which if you have no clue what I'm on about, please watch the Broken God theory for more context and proof, because there's a lot to back this up. There's even more evidence presented in this video by Wither. This mandala does have 4 hearts on it, but doesn't mean there are 4 of them specifically. After all, 4 shapes which seem to be depicting Eyes of Ender are present here, but we know that there are more than 4 eyes out there. If this being beyond this specific portal is directing the monstrous maw, as the Heart of Ender seems to with Wardens in Disc 5, again, look to the Ancient Illagers theory for further proof and context, these Dimension Eaters could be similarly directed. Now, why do we say that the Dimension Eaters relate to the End? Well, if the premise of the game is anything to go off of, it sounds like these beings will, in some way, be related to the Skulk, which seems to be the power behind the soul sickness afflicting the overworld as well as the monstrous maw. As we've explained in the Ancient Illagers theory, Skulk was a magical material created in part between the Endermen and the Illagers, who had allied to create the ancient cities. The Skulk's starry appearance is directly inspired by the End Portal, according to Jappa during a Minecraft Now livestream. The concept art for Skulk repeatedly mentions the void beyond its darkness, and multiple early Warden concepts literally have the End Portal effect. There's so much more to this, so definitely go watch the Ancient Illagers theory. Even the art we see here of the monstrous maw in front of the portal has 2 rows of blocks, with these strange symbols akin to ancient Greek meanders or frets, repeating patterns in old art that also has a big presence in the end. From spirals to the markings of the spire armor trim, the symbols in the rune rooms, which we've theorized to be created by Endermen, the green cloths on the benches of the End, and more, which all further connects these cities to Enderman design. The ultimate goal of the Enderman, according to the game design book written by Jeb himself, is to displace blocks key to the world's existence, to bring about collapse to all dimensions, to bring everything to nothingness and void, to make everything end. The intent of the Skulk has always been to be something like a texture disease that breaks away at blocks, according to some of this concept art, leaving dark holds and more Skulk in their wake, with some concept art describing a void beyond. That's why the Warden was once called the Hollowed. This concept art shows how the Hollowed disease was intended to create holes in blocks until they are hollow, literally hollowing them out, eating away at the world, just as the Skulk does now, as it corrupts the blocks around it, just as these Dimension Eaters, as their name implies, seem to be doing. Perhaps the Dimension Eaters are another product of the End's influence upon the Minecraft universe, made to help fulfill their ultimate goal of bringing collapse to every dimension. Their natures seem to be simply too closely aligned. According to the caretaker in this leak though, they just showed up out of nowhere. So it could be that their presence is new, maybe a result of whatever lies beyond the ancient city portal. Another heart creating new, living weapons to lay siege upon our world. Or something entirely else. Who knows? We'll have to see to be really sure. There is mention of there being a level that's referred to as the Ancient City entrance, which I've seen a few people being confused over, but I feel like we already have something like this. For example, when the heroes are making their way to the Desert Temple, they have to make their way through the Cacti Canyon first. Like the Cacti Canyon is the entrance level into the Desert Temple. The use of note blocks in the underground of the Monstrous Maw key art seem to be important, with mention of a cartographer pointing out areas on a map where there are additional note blocks spread about the land, with the heroes probably needing special note blocks to defeat the Monstrous Maw, and possibly even to interface with the portal. There's a few more mentions of villagers pointing out areas that the Monstrous Maw has laid waste to, along with the mention of captured wolves, hearing the faint howl before being drowned out by the sound of illager horns, which probably means the illagers could also be a smaller obstacle that we will have to face. There are a few more locations, like the Outpost entrance, the Witch Zone, and Shady Forest, which don't add too much, but are interesting to consider since the last video. The different levels seem like they might be split up into different regions. The Honeycomb Fields, which seems to encompass the Undermill, Farm, Island, Lake, Fields, and Forest areas. The Desert, which includes the Cliff, Fortress, Mountain, Village, and weirdly enough, Ice Lagoon, as well as the Forest, which includes the Deep Dark entrance, Witch Zone, Shady Forest, and Town. What these main areas and their points of interest mean for the game is unknown. Maybe we'll only have a select number of levels to complete, until we can reach the next region, and that's how the story's progression would play out. Quests and quest lines seem to be something appearing in this game, with one of these quests being about a pack of wolves, attacked and captured by a group of illagers, which you have to save. This is the point of interacting with many of these NPCs after all. We can see this screenshot of a villager with a speech bubble, and what appears to be an objective marker, seemingly meant to indicate an available quest. Backing this up, Mojang at one point released applications for a quest and narrative design lead last year, which definitely points towards this being a major aspect of the game. The plaza, which is this game's version of the map, might serve as a source of these quests. Judging from that image of a village with a marker next to it, this place is basically a village of our own, complete with houses, villagers hanging around, and docks, with a brand new Hatsune Miku mob. Insane implications for the lore. Finally, there's the mention of something from this game being planned to be added into the vanilla game, with a hint being that they're a key element of the game's lore. While I doubt the monstrous maw itself could be added, I don't think it's impossible, but I'm personally leaning more towards these Dimension Eaters, an entirely new mob, which ties into their game before the main game comes out, similar to Illagers and Piglins. But I'm unsure where the Dimension Eaters could fit in, either in a new structure, possibly within the Skulk, an existing or new biome, or could even be found in the end, with the potential connections there. But who knows what it could be. Maybe it's secretly the new Nautilus that serves as Spicewood's final villain. With that, that's most of what we can really glean so far from the more credible leaks for Spicewood, along with our own speculations. What do you think about the Dimension Eaters and the new additions to the gameplay? Personally, if you'd like to see a lot of the leaks altogether yourself, I would recommend this Spicewood compile by B-Dealer, which I'll put in the description. It has an in-depth look into the leaks from Wham and shows a lot of the existing screenshots and UI changes. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing, because it helps me make more videos like this and further. Thank you for watching, and have a good day or night.